2414 is a podcast about finding hope and common ground through casual conversation. Like the friends on the road in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 24, verse 14, we want to walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. Thanks for walking with us.
Welcome to 2414.
Yeah.
Just like we practice. My name is Shane Welter.
Hey, I'm Dan.
And I'm joined. You ruined my introduction. Sorry. And here's Dan.
Hey.
Okay, there you go. This is 2414 podcast about talking, conversation, and
we're sharing real life and taking time to not just go flying from one task to the next, but to notice people and to think about the things that we are experiencing, and as a couple of Christian men, what might God be doing in that stuff?
Yeah, and today specifically, we're continuing the conversation from our last episode about kids in church, babies, infants, toddlers in church making noise, maybe being disruptive, or maybe they're, soaking in everything. We'll talk about it. But first,
we'll do highs and lows, question of the day, and we're going to mix it up with our brief game. We are going to push pause on outbursts. We haven't got rid of it, but we're going to do something a little bit different today. Just hold that thought. We'll get there in a second. Shane, high and or low, either order you want. And then the question of the day is kind of a weird one, but it's what are you thinking about these days? Like you have a job and you watch TV or you stream and you play music, but is there a current? I'm just kind of like working through this in my head, or interesting like side hobby or interest. So what are you thinking about these days?
That is a surprisingly profound question. I think you could throw it in. It feel like several layers deep. But let's start. I'll start simple. Highs, lows, highs. Lows. I would just say, Lauren and I have been. Busy with a lot in life between music and just kind of other priorities with relationships and spending time with people, music. We haven't had a ton of time to work out as much as we'd like. We enjoy being active. Like, we love competitive active, but we're missing that part.
Because you had a rhythm, and then they were doing renovations.
Yes,
and now
well, it was long. I mean, it was basically like the music, like the Cinderella took a lot of time, and then went right into Christmas. So it just kind of swallowed that whole. And we got a little workout in January, some workouts in, but now not as much as we. So we might today. That's not the high, but we might be able to get workout today. Huzzah! But the high, I would say, Lauren and I were hired to play at a gig this past weekend. The grandchild of our very own Jan Grothe. Yeah. It was Hayden Grothe's birthday party, and they had it at Pike Place. Specifically, I'll preface this. It was at the Pike Brewing Company, which is one of my favorite
what is Hayden, like 8?
Yeah, so that's why I want to preface, so I don't
awesome.
They don't sound like no. It was. They have a really nice venue, cool. And so it was just, there's a lot of things to look at. It's one of those locations with a ton of memorabilia on the walls, a lot of history in that location, and they had a really just great space just for private events.
Were you the side stage for the birthday party or the headliner?
We were, I guess, headliner. Okay. We were just kind of like the entertainment, of the party.
You were the clown for this party.
The modern equivalent, if we were gonna go, the 70s, 80s equivalent. But we were, and that was one of the first places my dad and I went to when I first moved here. With my dad and I, we caravanned up here. We went to that place when we were checking out Pike Place, and we're like, this place is awesome. And so to be able to gig there, like, officially, and Lauren and I are just still kind of riding on that high of like, we got a gig not only in Seattle but in Pike Place. And so it's just really cool, and it went really well too. We played to a lot of young parents, and a lot of our music fits in that demographic. And so
they were singing along with Bieber.
Oh yeah, Bieber and I don't know Shrek music and all the sorts.
Okay. Any Taylor Swift?
They did request the Taylor Swift song. We were like,
you were ready?
Man. We were not ready, actually.
Okay, all right.
Sad to say, but we just looked up a song real quick. We're like, oh yeah, we did Shake It Off, and it was fun. So lesson learned. We're gonna adding a lot more Taylor Swift into our rep. And question of the day. What
are you thinking about?
What am I thinking about? Lauren and I are planning a trip. This isn't new to you, so you can act surprised. But Lauren and I are planning a trip later in August to the British Isles. I would say the UK, but Ireland is in that, so the technical term is the British Isles. So we're exploring London, Edinburgh. I don't know. Yeah. Whatever. England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Ireland. Sorry, Wales did not make the cut.
All
it's
right.
so out of the way.
Yeah.
Like it's so. Yeah, Wales did not make the cut.
For this tiny part of the globe, it's really hard to move around.
Yeah, who knew?
It's probably not more than like 100 miles away.
It's not bad. I think it's like a 3-hour drive if we were, or like a whatever train. But all right. Yeah, I'd beat around the bush. But I've been thinking about the UK, the British Isles a lot. Lauren and I are trying to book venues because we're going to make like a mini tour out of it. Because why not?
Okay.
We're
First Pike Place, now the UK.
Yep, we're growing crazy, you know. Our ambitions are through the roof. But yeah, we figured while we're there, we can get a portable, transportable gear that'd be small enough for us to travel, and we're pretty easy going. So I think we could make a lot of venues work. So we haven't officially booked one yet, but that's what we're working on. We're reaching out, emailing a lot of places, vendors.
I'm picturing one of those backpacking guitars. That's like just like the size of a large shoe.
Oh, I wish. Lauren does have a mini guitar, not that small, but but I'll probably just travel with our own, and yeah, it will be good. So that's been what I've been thinking about a lot. Just really excited because I'm really infatuated by Irish culture, Irish music, and kind of that area. And so we're excited about it all. I've been talking too much. I got to throw it over to you. Highs, lows,
sure.
The profound thoughts you have that keep you up at night.
Oh man, that's a lot. One low is I don't sleep very well, so I do a lot of thinking at night. So that's probably it. One low is I haven't slept well for a few days.
Yeah.
I think a related low is I have too much I want to do, and I'm not always good at prioritizing time or focusing on something for long. So, like, hey, I wanna do this 100-mile race, so I have to run 50 to 60 miles a week. Well, that takes a lot of time, it turns out. Like, it's not just physically hard. Like, that's a lot on the calendar. So, like, last night, I got home a little before 6 and had dinner and then digested, and then I ran from like 7 to 9 p.m., like had a shower and went to bed. So it was just like that was the whole day. So low is not sleeping, but combined with I want to read this and I want to study that and I want to think about this and I want to go run and I want to watch this show and I want to talk to my family and I want to like repair my fence and I want to clean out the garage, and it's just like it's really hard to prioritize my time.
It's not enough time in the day. On top of running. Leading a church too.
Yeah. So I mean, that's everybody's.
Yes.
We all have the same amount of time, but I'm feeling that pull in a lot of different directions. Mm-hmm. So that's low. Couple highs. One is I've had some really fun conversations this week, last couple weeks, of hearing people's stories of how they came to the Northwest or how they came to St. Luke's or how they got married or how they ended up working at this Boeing or wherever they were, and just some fascinating people. So a shout out to Bill Hilbert, and we just had a great conversation last week. And shout out to Wayne Tucker, just delightful guys to hear about their background, and it's just fascinating. Like, what on earth? Where did they, never would have guessed in 1,000 years that was a part of your story.
The more I learn about people and their life story, the more I'm amazed. Like, how are you here and now and what?
Yeah, so I think many of us, myself included, can be very boring people in conversation or everyday life, but I don't know that I've met anybody whose like story's boring.
No, but I think. I'm sorry. I think a lot of people they think their story is boring.
Yeah, because it's they've always known it.
Yeah,
and their brothers or sisters maybe had their very identical story, but I didn't. That's totally alien to me.
Yeah,
and even my own brothers, I've realized who grew up in the same house and enjoy the same things. We talk for an hour every Friday, and we laugh, and it's. Every week is still like, oh, this is great. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
So my high is just people have cool stories, and they've gone through hard things that I can't imagine, and they've lived through beautiful transitions that I haven't, and so that's been fun this week.
Wow.
And then, if I said the other highs, running's been fun. I think
You said that was part of your lows, but it's also
it's a time drain. But I think I'm up to. Oh, and then so running is another thing. I met a guy in the wood. Met a guy in the woods. That's I got 2 met a guy in the wood stories.
Tell me more.
So one met a guy in the woods story was about a month ago. I'm running, and this guy kind of gives me the stop sign, and he goes, "Hey, I think you're my pastor." And I was like, "I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, dude." I guess I'm out in the woods, whatever.
I mean, that was probably the last thing you were thinking about, too.
Yeah. And so, but out of that, he was in church the following Sunday, and it's like, "Hey, dude, give me your number. Let's go running sometime." So we've run for an hour to 2 hours every week since then.
Wow.
And it's just been great. Again, hearing his story, hearing what he's studied and what he's doing now and what he's hoping for. So
you guys talk while running?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if it was like if it's a kind of a run or you don't talk, you're breathing too hard.
No, I go slow enough that we can talk.
Okay.
So yeah, shout out to Mike, but thanks for the conversation, man. And it's been cool. And then the other met a guy in the woods story is there's this guy I see every Friday. He looks like an old prospector. He looks like he's lost from Alaska. I don't know how old he is.
He looks like a prospector. Does he sound like a prospector?
No. He's not like this caricature of a human.
Not wearing overalls and a pickaxe.
Well, no, but I see him every Friday. He's, I don't know, picture late 60s, mid 70s, somewhere in there. He's wearing blue jeans.
Okay.
And a flannel shirt like you're wearing.
Very prospector.
And if it's cold, he's got like work gloves, like leather gloves. And he's running. He's running in the woods in blue jeans and a flannel and like work gloves. And he's, like I say, I'd put him around 70 if I had to guess.
That sounds uncomfortable.
Yeah, but he's out there just nice as can be. I see him every Friday, kind of wave at him. And so this last week, I was like, I'm gonna go talk to this dude because he was in front of me. So I came up from behind, like, hey, I'm not trying to startle you, but I go, hey, I'm Dan. And he's like, I'm Dan too. And I was like, all right. Okay. And then we're jogging Phil up, like, hey, what are you doing out here? And what are you training for something? And we're talking and then we breathe for a minute and then he goes, are you a Jesus follower? And I was like, actually I am. I'm a pastor at St. Luke's. And he's like, he kind of, he's like, I could tell, like there, you seem nice, I think is what he was saying.
Yeah.
And then it turns out we've got mutual friends. Like people who go to St. Luke's, he's known from his life before.
Wow. So you made the connections.
Yeah, just this guy in the woods. I'm like, he runs in blue jeans every week. This guy's, he looks different. He's out here, he's smiling, but he's wearing blue jeans and a flannel, and he's running.
And then when you were done, you panned for gold.
Yeah, exactly. He told me where his claim's at.
Yeah.
So that was a high.
I can't believe how many people you're just kind of not just like saying hello to in the woods, but like actually like
having conversations,
having a like more than 3-second conversation.
Yeah, this is a 400-acre state park I go running in and like meeting friends and making new connections. So that's been cool.
That's a sign. Keep doing it.
So
keep running.
Question of the day: What have I been thinking about?
Yes.
One of my side interests, ongoing, but especially right now, has been sort of focus and attention span and why I and so many other people are just so jittery with with bouncing from one thought to the next, and what can we do about that? How much of it is technology? How much of it is just that's the way our brains work?
Yeah.
And so I've been really fascinated reading studies about attention and focus and the things that disrupt that, the things that we can do about it. So a little side interest.
Yeah, so wanting to learn more about attention spans, focusing on why can't we focus on one thing?
Why can't we focus? And sometimes like the anxiety or stress that comes from like the thoughts that come unbidden into our heads, that are usually about the past or the future.
Yeah.
And then that stresses you out, as opposed to, I mean, it sounds so like new age, but what does it mean to be present and to like live in now and to be aware of, okay, I'm feeling this and that's okay, but I don't have to spiral into regret over 2 years ago or play out how tomorrow might go 1,000 different ways. What if I just enjoy my tater tot casserole and talk to my kids?
Here and now. Reminds me of a song Lauren and I started to write. We got to revisit it, but it was called "It Take Me Back to Now." It's just like how like you can be in the moment, but you're not in the moment. It's like, take me back to now. Like I want to live in this moment. Like,
so the book I'm reading right now is like a neuroscientist at some university who does all these studies and writings and speaking at conference about, okay, how are you aware of when your attention is going somewhere else, and how do you kind of bring it back to now and regroup and.
I love that. Yeah.
And training yourself to be aware of that and to do it in a, less judgmental way, perhaps.
Yeah.
Of beating yourself up.
I'd be interested in knowing more of that. Feel free to share more. Maybe our next series.
All right. So,
But speaking of, speaking of like attention and focusing and,
so dumb.
Our original topic of this episode, I wouldn't say
kids in church.
Yeah,
we're not there yet. We have one more activity before we start, Shane.
Oh, do you want to save it to the end?
Save it to the end.
Yeah.
All right. We will save our replacement for
that's like our end. That's our reward for focusing on a conversation for more than
So scrub ahead to the end if you want to the last 2 minutes.
If
is it called scrubbing? Scrubbing? Is that what it's called when you like skip?
I've heard that. Okay. I've never used it, but I've heard.
I said it for the first time there. It didn't feel right.
It didn't feel right.
I think it's right, but it didn't feel right.
I thought it was more of like an editing term, like scrub through the film and,
Okay.
I don't know.
Comment below if you know what scrubbing means or the technical word for skipping ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. But
so we're talking about kids in church, which is a kind of an obscure thing. If you're not a Christian or a churchgoer, this might be totally obscure, but maybe you have other hobbies and interests and aspects of your life that you want your kids there. You're wondering if you should have them there. Maybe other people's kids are there, and that's ruining the experience for you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of different activities have different expectations. And so today's conversation is from a couple church leaders about why we think it's a good idea for kids to be in church.
Yeah.
Last week we talked about some of the challenges, acknowledging the difficulties of being a parent, of being a child, of being a church goer who's not related to that screaming, fussing kid.
And just having to, in some ways, deal with it.
Yeah. So it's hard. There are challenges, but we think it's kind of worth it. And so today we just want to have some conversation about why we think it's worth it. Maybe this episode, maybe the next one, we can share some tips and best practices and options for both parents as well as other adults in that congregation setting.
Speaking of, if you're listening to this and you're free at Tuesday late afternoons,
come on down
from 3 to 5. Let us know. Hit us up in the comments, and we'd love to talk with you. But let's talk a little more about kids in church. Why
do you think it's worth it?
Why do you think it's worth it?
Or do you? Maybe I don't. I shouldn't assume, Shane. I don't want to assume.
I think it? Yeah. And do we want to set like a parameter to like kids and like all the way up until 17, or do we?
That's good. I think so. A couple of things to set the stage here. Like we said in our last episode, we are not trying to make anybody feel bad for making different choices.
Yeah.
But as people who care about the church and faith formation and not just young people, but the whole body of Christ, we've thought a lot about this, and we wanted to share some of our thinking. So you can make different choices, and we love you. You're not a bad parent if you've made different choices in the past, and it's too late now. So that's kind of one stage setting comment. The other is just what age are we talking about?
Yeah. Like, are we talking fresh out of the womb?
Well, so I think that's actually part of the challenge for me. That's one of the big picture things that isn't always maybe
clear.
Clear. So I think the and I don't know what the church is like in other parts of in the world. But I do think in America we we are very individualistic. We don't think in terms of a community. We don't naturally think in terms of I belong to a group, and that group has needs, and that group needs me.
How can I help that? Or
it just sounds even like growing up watching Rocky movies and stuff like that. Like, oh, this just sounds like communism, or like it just sounds like, oh, those are the bad guys.
Oh yeah,
like we have this
we mentality. Yeah,
like it sounds like Nazi Germany or something. Where like we're all wearing the same thing, and this Ayn Rand. All of Ayn Rand books are like afraid of losing your individuality and serving the collective.
Yeah, but I also think there's some parallel to that around that time. I don't know. I was not alive for presidents who were, being presidents in the 60s, but I always think back to like Kennedy's speech, like, don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And I'm not talking about like in a political sense, but I think there was a more, especially in the how long ago was that? 60 years ago or 50 years ago?
Not that long.
But there was a more semblance of of community, like in more groups, more people had that community.
Yeah, so I think at different times in America, and certainly in different cultural backgrounds in different parts of the country, I think there are pockets where we naturally think of others, and there's certainly a general trend of you just take care of you.
Yeah, and I would say there's definitely eras to that. I think there are certain times in histories where that kind of ebbs and flows, and I think we're in one of those ebbs where there's not a strong sense of community between a lot of people. There's the strong individualist.
So recognizing that that's in the background, your question, Stan, I think is really insightful of just setting the stage for this conversation of when we say kids in church, what age are we talking about? Because one of the things I'm not fighting against is the right word, but a general trend in many American churches is the idea that the congregation ought to provide a specific program opportunity for almost every conceivable demographic.
Yeah.
So to make a caricature of, okay, when your baby's born, you put them in the nursery, and when they get a little bit older, they go to kids' church, and then eventually they go to the teen service, and then they go to the young adult service, and then they go to the young adult without kids service because they're, it's awkward. But then you get married, and so now it's that's a different vibe. So we have like the young adult married group, but without kids, and then we have the young adult group married with kids, and then we have the young adult never going to have kids, but now we have the not so young adult divorced people and the young adult single people.
And then we get to the middle-aged group.
And then there's the middle-aged people who are from here, who've been divorced, who have 2 kids, small group. And it just, we just keep breaking it down, and it becomes who is just like me, and those are my people. Yeah. And how come the church doesn't have a good young adult program, or a middle school program, or a first year of middle school program, or a first year of middle school program for people who are born out of state, and it gets ridiculous.
Yeah,
but
as ridiculous as it sounds, that's what we're doing. I mean, that's not we per se, but like that's what a lot of churches and not even churches, but communities are doing.
Right. So in this conversation, go back to your actual question. I think we're mainly talking about. It might include all the way up through high school, frankly. I know there are plenty of churches that the kids, that you could be an active member in good standing and doing everything your congregation is telling you, and you can have a child from birth until 18 who never goes to church with you. Mm-hmm. And they're doing everything right, so to speak, that the church has programming for them apart from the larger gathering of saints. all the way through high school, and then they go off to the young adult group, and they're literally never part of the sort of larger body of Christ, intergenerational kind of church in that sense.
Yeah.
So this can very easily become all the way up to that. I think what we're focusing in on is kind of infants, toddlers. They're not able to participate fully. They don't have their brains are not developed. They can't stand and recite the Nicene Creed. They can't stand. They can't speak. They're not taking notes. They're not singing along. They're not having a conversation with you after church about the sermon. In fact, they're probably pooping and spitting up and crying and dropping things. So not only are they not seemingly getting anything out of church, they're disrupting the people who might otherwise be.
Yeah. So let's maybe say in this instance, from birth until like 3 to 5, I'd say.
Yeah, kindergartners. Yeah, because an hour is a long time for kindergarten. Even
can't read yet. They can't sit still on their own merit.
Yeah,
I don't know. Kids just going to be moving. They're going to be fidgeting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's say that age range, 0 to 3 to 5-ish. These toddler infants, babies.
Yeah, so
etc.
They're not contributing. Mm-hmm. They're not participating. They're a drain on others around them. So why does Shane Welter think, yeah, bring them? This is great.
Yeah, maybe I don't. No, I do. No. Yeah. I do think it is worth bringing your baby, your child, your infant. I spoke a little about it in the last episode, but I think there's a lot of ways to justify my answer and ways to explain it. So, like anything else, I'll kind of just speak what's at the forefront of my mind, and
we'll see where it goes.
I can and kind of expand from there. But
we don't have show notes. This isn't scripted. We're just having a conversation.
Yeah, we just kind of figured it out on the whim. But if we were to see church almost like this family feast, this family get together, a community of believers for sure, a body of Christ. But I think the most common, easiest way to see it as like it's a family of faith, and it really like a family. Like we are all together. Like we want to be together and unified in Christ. And if one of those people aren't there, because for the soul, well, I would say if one of those people aren't there, we miss you. Like we care about you. We hope you're okay. We want you part of this family who care and love each other. So if you're not there, we miss you. And if you're not there because of your baby, well, that's two people. That's more than one person we care about. If I keep saying you hypothetically, but it's just like this person, hypothetical person who just had a baby and they're not coming to church because they have a baby, and it's hard. The baby is disruptive, and it's just hard. But this community of faith cares not only about you, but the people in your life, and absolutely your child. I definitely could say a church, a family of faith, wants that child to know they are loved and cared for. So please bring them to church so that they can know that they are loved. And yes, like in the physical service itself, that child will be disruptive. So what about the child? Well, because I think that child won't isn't going to learn the same way. I don't know that we participate in the service. They're not going to be participating in that way and speaking, call and response, singing along, following with the reading, listening. But in some ways, I mean, like, I don't know, from the moment you're born, you're learning, you're soaking knowledge, you're soaking things up, and unbeknownst to them, they're learning. They're seeing, observing things, kind of ritual, tradition, things that happen weekly that some people take for granted, but they're, I don't know, absorbing the routine. And there's a lot to gain. There's a lot of different pieces. I've got other thoughts, but I don't want to just keep vomiting different things. So I'll throw it over to you.
You've said so many things that have prompted all kinds of. I jotted a bunch of things down, which 30 seconds later I can't read it.
That's okay.
You know, St. Paul talks about like
thing.
speaking in tongues and the gift of interpretation. I write in tongues.
Right.
Like, what is that?
What language is
I
this?
don't know. But I love that you started with like family. So why do we have kids in church? You started with because we're a family, and I think it's worth acknowledging that that's unique. People might choose to participate in church or worship or some other synonym for all kinds of reasons. So some of them might be, I go to learn, or I go to sing the songs, or I go for a spiritual like fill up.
Yeah, like I go to be saved.
Yeah, or I go to be encouraged. And if those are the reasons, then I think it definitely makes sense of this little dependent who's loud is going to get in the way of that.
Yeah.
Like if you're mainly going for, quiet time with Jesus, like which by the way is a good thing. I have morning devotions, and
we need
that's
time
a good thing.
to ourselves
it's not
to
a bad
meditate
thing. And
think,
worship is good, and prayer is good. But I love that you're kind of taking the time to name at least one of the, I'll call it like an operating metaphor. Like what is our filter? How do we define this thing? And if one of the components, or even a main one, is we're together as family, then that starts my gears going of, okay, what do we do? Who is my family? What do we do as a family? And because there are certain things that are individual in my life. We don't all do everything, but we might go to a baseball game as a family. I mentioned before, I've got friends who go camping, and like backpacking camping, like days in the woods, filtering water, backpacking. Yeah. And when they had babies, they just kept doing what they do because that's what their family does. And they're
part of their identity as
that's as a family, that's what they do. Yeah. And there are other things like, so I played ice hockey growing up. Now we might go to a hockey game as a family, but my mom didn't play ice hockey. Like so we didn't there were things that we did that not everyone in the family participated in.
And it probably wouldn't be smart to carry around a baby while playing hockey.
Yeah, don't take an infant ice skating or playing full contact hockey. But so actually, when Alexis was born, we were in North Idaho, and my wife Charlotte was playing in a rec volleyball league. And I very much remember we would put Alexis in the trailer behind our bike, and we would ride to this gym that was decently far away, and then I would sit on the floor and protect Alexis from the volleyballs, and we'd watch mommy play, and because that's what we did. Yeah. So that image of as a family. I don't know how this connected to some of my other thoughts, but I wrote down a few other notes. But you're going to say something?
No, I'm just kind of processing what you're saying now.
So but acknowledging that there are things certain things you do as individual members of a family, but so there's a difference between we're a family that goes camping and one of our kids plays ice hockey. Or dad plays ice hockey. That doesn't mean the whole family should be playing ice hockey. Yeah. But if you cared about camping and you want to be a family that camps, I would recommend you not wait until your kid is 15 and asks to go camping.
Oh yeah, no, I feel like that's not going to work well.
That's not going to work. And so like if you want them to be part of you, if camping is a priority for your family, the sooner you get them involved, the better. Yeah. Make it normal. Yeah. I mean, don't wait until they're potty trained and weaned and on solid foods and can sleep through the night. Yeah. It's going to be an uphill battle at that point. The sooner you start, the better it's going to be.
Yeah. And I think regardless, it's going to be hard.
Kids are hard. Kids ruin everything. I mean, I joke about kids. They're terrible. They're obnoxious. They're very difficult. Yeah. But if something's important to you, it's not going to get easier for the most part. So I mean, you could think about anything. So if and I also want to acknowledge, I keep speaking about like husband and wife because I believe that's God's plan for families. But I realize there are single parents, there are divorced parents, there are very complicated family situations. But so I'm not going to be inclusive every time I mention a family dynamic.
Yeah.
But just I can speak from my own
But
experience.
to a parent or parents.
Yeah. So if my wife and I, if we think it's important to pray before a meal, even if we have a kid in the room, we're going to pray before the meal because that's what we do. And the kid is not folding their hands. They're not paying attention. They might be flinging their sippy cup. And so realistically, our prayers before we had kids, maybe we folded our hands and bowed our heads. But when we first had kids, it's like, you can't turn your eye away for a second. They're little hellions. They'll destroy things. So we're praying, like looking at the kid out of the corner of our eyes and like smiling and like catching, come Lord Jesus, be our guest. We're catching the sippy cup. And so because that was a value for us, we kept doing it when we had kids so that our children would know this is who we are as a family. So it's like they're learning the patterns, they're learning the value, they're learning how to do it. They start to mumble the words.
So formationally,
it's good words. Formation. We're forming them to be part of our family. And what you said, Shane, is that what if we thought about church as family? Like, what if we are the family in faith? And so when family members are absent, that's not good. And relationally, but if as a family we have values and this is how we do things in our family, then how do you learn how to be part of your normal, like your home family, is you participate in the life of the family.
Yeah.
You don't go off to like family finishing school.
Yeah. It's you're not joining halfway into
and now that you're civilized, you're welcome to the table.
Yeah. But I think but the sad thing, like, I don't know, there are communities of faith that treat it like that.
Yeah.
Like oh now like
and they're not dumb or wrong or evil. It's
No,
just they're making different choices.
And it's a different mindset going into it. But here,
but yeah, when you're talking about another thing about formation made me think is like, I tell my infant I love you. By the way, I don't like infants personally. Like they're boring, they're disruptive. I'm glad they're in church. No, I love them in a certain sense. But I remember if people don't know me, I probably sound terrible.
You said,
I know.
No. I just have to relish in what you said. Like, I tell my infant I love them. I don't like infants.
Yeah, that's just, so when we first had Alexis, who's 13 now, I was like, oh, we're gonna be a family of kids. I'm like, oh, this is hard. And I remember my wife went upstairs, like, take a shower, and I'm just holding this baby, like, I love you. I love you. How is your day going? Looking at my watch. How long has she been in there? 12 seconds. Oh, boy. This is going to be like, how long do showers take?
What do I do with this?
Meanwhile,
thing?
I'll go on like a 4-day business trip. I'm like, I'm out. But
yeah.
there was nothing. We did nothing to talk about. She couldn't do. She's just a lump. It screamed at me.
Yeah.
We couldn't discuss anything. But I told her I loved her. And I prayed for her and with her. And I read to her. Even though she didn't understand what I was saying, but I told her so that she would know it, so that she would come to understand it, so that she would see that is her identity, that even before she could do anything, I spoke worth and value and love and relationship to her. And you go to a 1-year-old's birthday party, which has been a while since I've been to a 1-year-old's birthday party, but my guess is, my memory is you still sing happy birthday. Like, they don't know what's going on. There's a flaming cake in front of them, right? Like, and everybody's like, shove it in your face. So they have no idea what's going on, but we as the family are singing to them and celebrating them. And you light the candles, even though they have no concept of candle and birthday. They don't know what day it is. They don't know they're 365 days old.
Yeah.
But we start doing the things that are important to us.
Yeah. And it's, in some ways, you're not, I don't know, when you're singing happy birthday, and the baby's making noise, everyone's like, no, stop. Oh, like the child made a noise. Oh,
stop the camera. Hold on. Do it again. I'm going to get a better take.
Well, maybe people
today.
Do.
Who knows?
Who knows? But yeah, like, to parallel that, like with church, as we come together as a community of faith, like, I don't know. There is like the classic saying, like, come as you are. Like, we want you to come as you are. Like, yeah, your child's going to make noises. It might throw things on the ground. And yeah, it makes it hard for others. And I'm sure the parent self, like, but it's important. Yeah, for that formation. But also, like, this is who we are. Like I'm not going to, I'm not trying to diss. I'm really not trying to diss other churches. It's just like this is the way we do it here at St. Luke's. But like we don't want to hide your kid. Like the child is part of you. That's part of your identity. You are a parent, and so be who you are here as a parent. Mess and all, like screaming infant and all. And obviously there's times if you need to step out. Like there's a tantrum. Like I think there's a bridge to the. Like, I don't know, or not a bridge, but like I don't know. You can do what you need to.
There's times to regroup.
Yes.
I mean, same thing as an adult. Like, I remember my mom would have like a coughing fit.
Yeah.
And she'd bring a lozenge or a cough drop. And even still, like, at some point, she just had to go get a drink of water or go cough in the lobby. But
take care of yourself. Take care of your child. Like, absolutely. Like, take care.
I like that angle of this is part of your life, and if this is a place of real life and being community, then and kind of bring your baggage, like literally, like the diaper bag and the toy bag and the activity bag.
Yeah, and I don't know if you had a thought. I had some, so something I think about a lot too, and I want to try to say it a lot in the series because I think it's just I personally think it's. I don't know, a good idea. And I don't think it's so much an idea as much as this is probably a practice you learned in seminary. But I'm always reminded, I don't know, if somebody asks, like, why would you let kids in church? Sure, we've got this laundry list of, like, explanations. Well, it's good for formation. And, it's good, important for the church, and they want loved. And, just got a lot of a list of reasons that we're still kind of exhausting in some ways. But I think it's really important because, too, if we're going to look at it from a scriptural sense, like, does the Bible say what we need to do? I think it does. When Christ is teaching and all the kids are coming to them and the disciples are like, get out of here, kids. Like, this is serious. Like, this is like,
let the grown-ups talk. Right?
Yeah. Let the grown-ups talk. This is but Christ says, no, let the children come. Like for theirs is the kingdom of God. Like, I think we mirror that in church, in worship. Like we don't want to turn people away. Like, if anyone, like, the first shall be last and last shall be first. Like, this child has to depend on its parents. So let them come first to church. Like, this is who Christ came for. And so let him hear the good news, even if it means nothing to him.
Yeah. Like that's what I was saying before, like telling your infant, I love you in the morning or at night or when your spouse is in the shower, that means nothing to them.
Yeah.
But it's true, and you're forming them and filling them with that truth.
Yeah. And if nothing else, like, I like to think that, I think this is I don't know, like, Jesus invites all to him, especially the lowliest, for theirs is the kingdom of God. And children are very much in that lowliest category.
Yeah. A couple books have come to mind in this last couple minutes. One is William H. Willimon. I can't remember the actual title of the book right now, but William H. Willimon, he was I think like a chaplain at Duke maybe. But he wrote a book called something like Peculiar Speech. And it's about sort of the language of faith in some ways is peculiar. It's weird. We talk about sin and grace and mercy and redemption.
There's a lot of words that mean nothing to a lot of people.
Yeah, so in a more closer to our faith tradition, Heather Choate Davis wrote a book called Loaded Words.
Who was on 2414.
A guest of the show. But her book on Loaded Words is sort of reclaiming some of this church vocabulary of why does it matter that we talk about sin? Why does it matter we talk about grace? And not just in we got to bring the Bible back or people are biblically illiterate, but there's a certain sense in that our language acquisition comes from exposure.
Yeah.
We learn languages. We talked about this last episode, but we learn languages as we're immersed in it. And the best way to learn a language is to be like the most fully immersed in it, the most consistently as you can. So Duolingo like incentivizes streaks, and Duolingo right now actually they have point system kind of stuff, gems, whatever they're called. But they incentivize. There's if you do a session before like 7 a.m., you qualify for a bonus point period that evening. And if you do one in the evening, you qualify for double points in the morning. Because if you just do like one burst of 3 hours, that's not as effective as 3 1-hour bursts.
Yeah.
And so the more regular exposure, the better you're going to learn a language.
That's so true to like, I think, just everything in life.
Learning in general, but like I'm saying specifically languages.
Yes.
And so I think that's true of all kinds of learning is repetition is the mother of learning. There's a fancy Latin phrase, but specifically with languages, that the way God has chosen to communicate is through his word. He could have impressed, immediate feelings upon our heart or thoughts into our head, but he's chosen to work in human words, specifically words that were originally given in Hebrew and Aramaic and Greek. And then the word became flesh in Jesus. He's the embodiment of God's word, and the proclamation and the teaching of God's word is how God promises to work. And so these words, we want to translate them into understandable, approachable, everyday things that we can comprehend. And yet there's an element that all language is foreign until we become familiar with it. And so and maybe I'm making some big jumps here, so sorry if I'm leaving you behind, but God has chosen to speak. Language is always foreign until we learn it. The way we learn language is by repeated exposure and immersion, especially from a young age. We talked about this last week. Americans are terrible at languages because we only speak English and we're only exposed to it. Meet some kid who grows up on the border between Italy and Germany and France. It's like they know all the languages because they've heard them their whole life.
And it's not, and like, it's not in some ways, like, you could make the case that like, that Americans don't care about other languages, and so we don't need. But in the others, like, we're a big country, and most of it isn't bordering other. Languages.
I'm not trying to diss on Americans. My point is that if you want your kids to know the faith, and God communicates his faith in words, if there's a certain language that comes with Christianity, then the earlier and the more often your child is exposed to that language, the more fluent they're going to be.
Yeah. And just to understand that language, in this instance, you're not meaning as like English, French, but language as in like the
vocabulary.
The common vocabulary within that of the meaning of these words.
Because it's foreign. If you go to talk to somebody in the street who has no Christian background and talk about the propitiation of the atoning sacrifice for sin and the mercy of God in our Savior Messiah, it's nonsense. But if you grew up
as well have just spoken Latin.
But if you grew up in the church, you speak the language that God speaks.
And I'm reminded of that too, like in other fields. Very much, this is like I don't. If you're studying mathematics and science, like you have to use that deeper vocabulary in order to understand like the deeper nuances of that study of that topic.
So technical language isn't it's not evil. Now it can be a barrier, and I think some people are very cavalier and they play loosey-goosey with language and they puff themselves up by sounding smart. I'm not trying to say you're a poor Christian if you don't talk about atonement. I'm just saying the Bible talks about things like sin and grace and mercy, and it might use those words in a very different way than our culture does. And if you're going to be raising a child in the faith, it is probably more helpful than harmful for them to be familiar with the words of the faith. And we know that words and language come from early and often exposure.
And language is important in life.
Yeah, it's one of the main ways God has chosen to work.
Yeah, through the world.
Like just as it being human, you mean?
Yeah,
Apart from faith.
Yeah, stuff. Like as a human, like it's I don't know. My brain just went in the rabbit hole of like it's just fascinating. Like, yeah, certainly other creatures of this world have ways of communicating, but nothing is as deep or as articulate as the human language.
Yeah,
and it's just like I think there's a reason for like why we're as complex as we are.
So that's like a super niche, narrow little thing to say, hey, why should your kid go to church? Why should you bring a church? But really, like to me, this is not a small thing. It's because that's how they learn the language of the faith. Mm-hmm. And I happen to think, there's probably a dozen other really good reasons, but this is one reason that is not insignificant. Yeah, because that's how you learn to talk. Yeah, and how you learn to talk also shapes how you think. Like the relationship between how we think and the words that we have. When we have words for things, we're able to think differently about them.
Yeah, and it makes me think too. We're very much talking about babies and infants and people who are young, but like it doesn't stop. Also, like the ship hasn't sailed because the ship hasn't sailed because you weren't here as a baby or a toddler. Because I'm also reminded when we brought guests on Kelsey Zern, like a big reason of her formation in faith were the people. There were the people from the church who stepped up and cared for her and let her know that she was loved in Christ. Like.
And also, as adults out there, or young adults or older adults, ask those questions. Hey, when you say mercy, what does that mean? It's okay. Ask the questions.
Yeah.
We've got a number of people at St. Luke's, so I love that. One I miss is Larry Davis. He died a couple of years ago now, a year and a half.
Maybe a year, yeah.
But he would always be the one like, Pastor, what are we talking about? Like, he kind of asked the question, and we've got a few other people who are just so great to say, I don't know what this means. Yeah. And most people in the room are thinking the same thing, but they weren't
too afraid
to ask.
Yeah, because I'm sure most people think that they're the only ones.
Right. Yeah. You might know that feeling of I don't know what they're talking about, but it feels like everybody else does. So I would say ask those questions, but also for the topic at hand, what if you were able to give your child an upbringing that they didn't have to feel that way? Mm-hmm. Like this is just normal.
Yeah.
We spoke about grace and redemption and forgiveness and new creation and regeneration because that's what God talks about. And so that's just what we think and talk about because that's the air I breathe. That's the world I grew up in. Like, that's awesome. Like what a gift to be able to provide.
Oh, your kids just know.
Yeah. So one book is Peculiar Speech by William Willimon. Another book is Loaded Words by Heather Davis. A third book, kind of less about language and more about this topic in general, is by James K.A. Smith. He's a philosopher and a professor. Mm-hmm. He's got some very heavy lifting books, but probably one of the more approachable books on this topic is called You Are What You Love. It's the popularized version of Desiring the Kingdom. So he wrote a book called Desiring the Kingdom that's about how our embodied lives are shaped through our experiences and we become the things that we order our lives around. Like we become what we love, what we repeat, the things we think and say and do and sing about and physically go through emotions that shapes who we are.
Yeah. Like if you really love, I don't know, camping and your identity is just centered in like the outdoors and nature and being outside, like, your life and the people you meet and I don't know.
Yeah, and that just the habits that fill our days maybe sometimes our habits start with what we value. A lot of times our habits we are unexamined, but as we go through our lives, they are reinforcing what's important to us or not. And to pause and say, like, you can be free of your habits. So like for my family, we mute the commercials when we watch TV.
I love that you do that.
Now the Super Bowl is interesting because some of them are entertaining. So one of my kids went to mute it. I go, no, we're going to listen to this. Like, but it's a commercial. I was like, yeah, but it's the Super Bowl.
People, they paid a lot of money for these commercials.
They worked hard to entertain us. Let's see how they did.
Yeah.
But we've been we so love the sporting game or whatever it is that we're willing to open our eyes to these people who have millions of dollars to hijack your brain and create discontent.
Yeah.
And it's creating a heart of discontent that thinks it'll be happy with this new product.
Mm-hmm. And it's just been normalized.
Yeah. And so this thing that we didn't sign up for, none of us thought, I'm going to spend a half hour watching a program and, 7 of those minutes being sold things that
20% of me watching it, I have to watch somebody trying to make me spend money on their thing.
So that wasn't necessarily a conscious choice, but it's shaping us. Our lives are being shaped by that. So this book, You Are What You Love, talks about how our habits and choices shape who we are. And we get to be free agents who choose what are the habits, what are the activities, things we engage in that are going to shape us around what we actually want to be. Who do I want to become?
Yeah.
Who do I want my kids to become? And are these things helping or hurting that? What are other options? So a few books to consider.
Few books. If I remember, I'll put it in the description. If
we'll just read the notes here, wrote down, Shane.
Oh yeah, flying bird
right next to speech, cotton, spouse, menu item, and rash.
Yeah, I know that
last episode.
Know what that means? Yeah,
it's things you scratch. I don't know, things you pick. Oh yes, things you pick.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that was the outburst. I mean nothing to somebody. Nevertheless, I know there are nuances to this topic of kids in church that we're either forgetting or that are maybe too nuanced to discuss at the moment, just for time permitting. But do you have any kind of final thoughts? And then what we've processed?
I just want to keep acknowledging it's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard. And yet I don't think it necessarily gets easier. Mm-hmm. So I told Adam Schmeling, Brenda's husband, at their baby shower, one of the best pieces of advice, or a good piece of advice we got when we were expecting and our baby was starting to eat baby food. Somebody told us, just give them the grossest vegetables for as long as you can. Don't let them know there's things like blueberries and strawberries, because once that's on the table, they're not eating the nasty stuff.
Yeah,
but if they don't know better, you can give them all the healthiest, nutritious food possible.
Yeah.
And so the challenge is you have a second or third kid. Now the third kid's hey, wait, what do they have? You can't keep doing it. But my point is, it doesn't get easier. If you give your kids sweet cereal early,
oh man,
you're not going back to Raisin Bran or whatever, something less desiring. So it doesn't get easier. So decide what's important and stay the course, because incorporating new things into your young person's life only gets harder. If you want to pray before bedtime, I promise you, your 17-year-old who's never prayed at bedtime is not going to be interested in doing that with you.
Yeah.
Now your 13-year-old might be a little bit more than your 17. Your 7-year-old is going to be a little bit easier to work with. Your 1-year-old, even though they're crying, they don't know better, and that just becomes normal. So you do it for the first 6 months, and the next 6 months, and the next 6 months, and the next 6 months, and pretty soon you've got a 4-year-old who's saying bedtime prayers with you. Now, if you just started with the 4-year-old out of the blue, hey, turn off the TV show because we're going to pray before we go to bed. No. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So even at a 4-year, to start at 4 is harder than starting at 0. And teaching respect and sharing and kindness and love and just all the things you might want your kid to do, even though it is so hard as infants and toddlers. And it is so hard. In a frightening sense, it only gets harder. As hard as it is to teach them to take a bath and eat their vegetables, the alternative to waiting until they want to is not a good scenario.
Yeah.
So that's my kind of not final word on the topic, but in summary, it is hard. It's absolutely hard. And I think it's totally worth it for the real benefits that we don't even see, and then from the pragmatic, it doesn't get easier.
Yeah,
It's kind of ominous sounding, but it
doesn't get easier.
Who else is going to tell people this? And I think that's one of the other challenges.
If the parent, again, I don't want to say this like to be condescending, but if the parent of the child isn't going to make going to church a priority, who is?
Right? Nobody.
As far as points of contact go,
Parents are the single biggest influencer in their kids' faith.
People who have the biggest impressions on a child's, even youth's life. It's always the parent.
Yep. I'm reading another book right now, 7 Practices of Healthy Youth Ministry, just came out by Concordia Publishing House. And the 2 biggest impactors on a young person's faith life, kind of as their teen years, and then as they go off to college, and when they look back and they ask kids who stayed in the faith versus those who didn't, that 2 of the 7 biggest things are parents' involvement and other supportive adults. It's not how good the music was. It's not how good the preaching was. It's, did mom and dad take this seriously, and were there other adults in that child's life who were modeling and encouraging and investing in the kid?
It's just so cool to have that like data and statistics just to know that.
Yeah.
Sure, there's a lot of factors in life that can lead a person to walking on the following Jesus. But just to know that that parents and supportive adults in their lives, we know, have a large fact. We're not throwing darts at blindfold darts on a dartboard. I don't know, throw a Bible at them, hope that works. No.
These are the biggest 2. And if mom and dad aren't doing it, then there are no other supportive adults either. So that's you lose 2 for the price of 1. Because if mom and dad aren't bringing them, then that kid doesn't have other supportive adults in the faith.
And just
it's weighty. It's a big deal.
It's important.
All right, any wrap up thoughts from you, Mr. Welcher?
Maybe jumbled nonsense. I don't think I have a clear cut defined.
Do you feel intimidated, by the way, if you and Lauren ever have a child or children? Does this scare you? Does this make you motivated? Brenda's not here today, but I wonder how she's going to be feeling right now. Maybe conceptually she's on board, but 3 months from now, when she's got a diaper blowout halfway to church.
Yeah, completely different when it's actually practical. It's one thing to imagine the scenario in your head, but completely different when it's tangible and it's actually happening.
Yeah.
And I prep myself with those thoughts of sure, I think I'd be a parent in this way, and we'd do this and model in these ways. But then the other flip side of that is but then there's the whole side of being a parent that I don't see. I am Lauren's the oldest of her family. I'm the baby. I never got to see kids growing up the same way Lauren did. Lauren's a natural savant with taming children.
Taming. Subduing.
I mean, Lauren, my nieces and nephews love Lauren because she's so she can speak their language in a completely different way. When I was a kid, I had everyone kind of catering to me because I was the baby.
That explains it.
Exactly, right? Yeah, spoiled little brat. Yeah, no. But Lauren had that. It's so. I in some ways I don't know all what goes behind the scenes. Of course, I'm the youngest, and I see my older siblings and relatives like being a parent. But I know there's yet so much in your life that gets consumed to do that. And so my hope, I hope Lauren and I are just able to integrate our child into our daily lives, and it's a hope, and I don't know how things will play out with our child, but I hope we're still able to have music and play music and lead music. I've seen people gig with their child on their chest with the headphones on the baby's great. Ears, and I hope we can do that. I hope I could worship lead holding a baby, the baby backpack.
For about 3 years, I gave the benediction every week with a child in my arms. like
Is this Coeur d'Alene?
a little bit in Coeur d'Alene, a little bit in Omaha. Like
Okay.
Charlotte could only hold them back for so long, and by the
Before they
final 5
run
minutes,
up
like
to you.
fine, just go.
Yeah.
That's back when they loved me and talked to me, and they wanted to be with me. Like, Daddy,
Yeah.
like they run down the aisle, and yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and that's so I hope I'm still able to do that, not to model it for anyone else but that kid, and just like, yeah, I still want to, like, our child, whatever, to be part of our lives in those ways, and especially church. Like, and I don't know how it'll play out, but
Yeah.
I don't know. We want our kids to, I don't know, to live a life where they know they're loved, and like, I don't know, and to be part of our lives too. We don't want to kick them out in any way.
Yeah. And this is hard, folks. This is not easy. I would say one of our goals as a podcast is, that theme verse of Luke chapter 24, verse 14. They were talking about everything that had happened while they're kind of walking on the road. Mm-hmm. Whether you have kids, don't have kids, don't want kids, used to have kids, wherever you are in this, if you made it an hour into this conversation, congratulations. We're going to reward you with a silly game in just a second, but you must care about this to some degree. So find a person and say, hey, what did you do, or what do you want to do, or what did you learn? Mm-hmm. Don't be a know-it-all. Don't just go to some expecting mother and go, let me tell you what you need to do. But maybe go to that expecting mother and go, hey, how can we support you? Or have you thought about what this is going to look like? And if you want to have somebody to talk to, we would love to hear what you're thinking, feeling, fearing, and we want to walk alongside of you. If you, don't be alone. Have the conversation. Be part of the family.
Mm-hmm. And be prepared to just listen.
Yeah, you don't have to have the answers. Go, I don't know. That sounds really hard. Yeah, my kid didn't do that, but I don't know what I would have done. Mm-hmm. Great.
I probably could have said this at the beginning. We're not like licensed professionals in like children's therapy and like,
Right.
I was you have experience parenting.
I've kept 3 kids alive.
Yeah, yeah.
So 13 plus 11 is 24 plus 9 is 33. So I like to tell people I have 33 years of parenting experience. So Charlotte and I combined have 66 years of parenting experience. That's pretty good.
You guys are old.
It's pretty good. All right. Okay. Now on to some silliness. We had played Outburst. We'd played Outburst for a number of rounds, and we're not done with that. We're gonna mix it up a little bit. Mm-hmm. We have a new game. My big brother Mike, thanks Mike, recommended it to us. We played it online one time, called Wheels versus Doors, kind of based on that internet question a few years ago of which are there more of in the world. Shane and I.
Oh yeah, which are there more of, wheels or doors?
Right. I don't know.
Yeah,
Shane and I, like always, are going to ignore the rules of the game. We haven't read them at all, and we're just going to adapt this to our own whims as we play on the podcast. So what's going to happen is I'm going to pull one card, and on this card are going to be 6 items. And we are going to guess which one there are the most of in the world. And for giggles, we're going to also guess which one is the least. So the biggest and the smallest, the most and the least.
Yes. So there are
6 categories or six items. I will read them maybe a couple times. These actually look pretty long. So I'm going to read all 6.
Play at home.
Play along.
Process.
We have not fact checked any of this. So if you have any concerns about the veracity of these facts, you can send all your comments to Hasbro or Milton, somebody or other.
One of the
some internet company. Format Games. So there you go. Check out Wheels and Doors by Format Games. Okay. They could all be lying. These might not be true, so don't blame us.
Yeah.
Are you ready to play, Shane?
I am ready. I'm sure listeners are too.
Okay.
Whew. Okay.
Which is the most and which is the least?
All right.
I'm going to read 1 through 6.
All right.
Number 1, tons of weight of Mount Everest.
Tons of
so that like the mass of the entire Mount Everest weighed in tons.
How do you even quantify?
I don't know. Number 2, trees. I don't think that
This is already impossible.
it's already
oh my
possible.
goodness.
So I'm not sure if that means like species or like I think individual trees.
I
Like,
bet it just means just
how many living trees are there?
trees are there in the
All right,
world?
number 3, hours of songs streamed on Spotify in 2021.
My goodness.
So number 1, tons of weight of Mount Everest. Number 2, trees. Number 3, hours of songs streamed on Spotify in 2021.
They went all out on this. Jeez.
Number 4, videos watched on YouTube monthly in 2021. So how many videos were watched every month on YouTube? How many hours of songs in the year on Spotify? Trees or tons of weight on Mount Everest. Number 5, galaxies in the observable universe according to Hubble. This is ridiculous.
This has to be one of the most complex.
Yeah. All right. So so galaxies in the observable universe according to Hubble. And last, number 6, individual sheets of newspaper printed annually. So our goal is to determine which is the greatest and which is the least. I'm going to read them one last time, 1 through 6.
Can I just say
Please,
something for people? I've played like 1 or 2 cards of this just to like try it out, and the cards were like, how many presidents were there? How many like teeth are in a mouth? Like this has just went from 0 to 6 trillion really quickly.
That escalated quickly. All right, I'm going to read through them 1 through 6, which is the most, which is the least. Number 1, tons of weight of Mount Everest. Number 2, trees. Number 3, hours of songs streamed on Spotify in 2021. Number 4, videos watched on YouTube monthly in 2021. Number 5, galaxies in the observable universe according to Hubble. And number 6, individual sheets of newspaper printed annually. All right, I need to think for just a second here.
Yeah,
We're going for the most and the least.
I gotta write this down. I'm
gonna say most.
Could you read number?
Was it say least? Okay.
4. Which
So,
one's 4?
so tons of weight in Everest is number 1.
Okay.
Trees is number 2. Spotify is number 3. YouTube is number 4.
What was the YouTube?
Videos watched on YouTube monthly in 2021.
Okay.
And then galaxies is number 5, and newspaper sheets of paper annually is number 6.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Do you have your answer? Your greatest and your least.
The Spotify one. What was the time length?
Hours of songs streamed on Spotify in 2021.
In all 21.
Like all users the whole year measured in hours.
Okay. All right.
Are you ready?
I am now.
I'd like you to reveal your number. What do you think is the greatest?
I think the
biggest.
greatest is the galaxies.
I also went with galaxies in the observable universe according to Hubble.
Okay.
And what did you put as least?
All right. For least, I went with tons and Mount Everest.
Okay. I did hours of Spotify.
In all of 20.
Yeah.
Do you want to defend your answer?
Well, I don't know anything about Everest. I mean, it's big. I do remember when I did some research on Mount St. Helens, the amount of tons that went up in ash felt astronomical to me.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And so
and that was
Everest
just
is bigger.
a small portion.
That wasn't the whole thing gone.
And that dwarfs in comparison to Everest.
When I got to trees, I thought that was going to be the biggest. Like, there's a lot of trees.
There's a lot of trees in the world, but more than the observable galaxy. I have heard like
I don't know. Galaxy's big. I don't know if I'm mistaking like size in light years relative to like perceivable galaxies.
Yeah, I mean I remember hearing like the amount of galaxies is just insane.
Also, individual sheets of newspaper annually printed. Like, there might be millions every day.
Yeah, that was the one I thought about doing lowest.
Okay,
but.
Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. Oh my gosh, this is hard to even read. All right. I'll just go in order.
Okay.
All right. Okay, here we go. First place, the biggest one there was, is trees.
What?
At 3 trillion. Okay. So trees.
Trees was the biggest.
Was number one. In second place is newspaper. So number 2 of trees is first place. Number 6, newspapers printed sheets of newspaper printed annually came in at 1.8 trillion.
Wow.
The next one down. Oh, we were terrible. The next one down is tons of weight of Mount Everest.
That was 3?
Yeah, that's third place. 800 billion tons.
Okay.
The next one down is hours on Spotify, 535 billion hours.
Okay. Wow. All right.
Next one down is videos watched monthly on YouTube, 150 billion videos watched in a month in YouTube. Mm-hmm. And this lowest one, which we both had, is the greatest. Galaxies in the observable universe, 100 billion.
See, okay, I would have thought that because it was like, ooh, it's like the universe is incomprehensible.
That's still a lot of galaxies. 100 billion is a lot of galaxies.
It's still incomprehensible.
It's no newspapers though. 1.8 trillion newspapers.
Galaxies have
trees is number 1. 3 trillion trees.
Galaxies have nothing on trees.
Nothing on trees.
Nothing.
A fraction.
Yeah.
A minuscule fraction.
Yeah. It's tiny. Tiny.
How would the national deficit fit in here, Shane? Isn't that in the trillions? We might owe more money to China than there are trees on the planet. Think about that for a second. I bet we do. I bet as a country.
Trillions?
Oh yeah.
Is it worth Googling?
Yeah, look. Okay. I'm saying the United States owes more money than there are trees.
What's your over under? Yeah, what's
by a trillion, at least. I think we owe more money by the trillions than there are trees on the planet.
All right.
What's the U.S. national deficit? Comment below.
Well,
Shane's having a hard time typing.
I am. All right. Well, I'll just do the as of December 2020-23. The total federal debt was 33.1 trillion.
33 trillion.
So there's more.
So the United States owes 10 times as much money as there are trees on the planet. That's not good. This isn't a political show. I'm just saying that's not good. I don't know how to solve it. I don't know what the answer is, but that we owe like 300 times as much money as there are galaxies.
On the flip side, on the flip side, I'm too lazy. I'm not going to Google it. But there's how many trees?
3 trillion.
There's 3 trillion.
Actually, so it's 3 trillion 40 billion. And then zeros.
Like 3.5 trillion trees in the world, and each of those trees are giving you a breath of life.
Oh.
So there's
pretty small.
Okay, well, whatever. I don't want it to end the episode on a little more positive note.
I feel very encouraged by this. That's a lot of YouTube video. That's a lot of Spotify. 535 billion hours of music.
Collectively,
and podcasts.
Yeah.
So we might have been part. No, we weren't back in 2021, were we?
Oh no, I don't.
Okay, then the updated edition.
Can't remember.
No, we haven't been doing this for 3 years.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, we haven't. Okay. Well, but nevertheless,
it just feels like it.
Yeah. It's life. I tell you.
All right, Shane, sign us off, buddy.
All right, listeners at home, thank you for listening through whatever this is. Keep the conversation going. Seriously, like all things, there's a lot in formation, and we are formed by observing, listening, experiencing. So do that with your neighbor. Have a conversation. Listen to their life story. Maybe your friend, maybe your spouse. I don't know. But it's important. So we hope you do at home. People are important.
Shane, can I add one more thing before we find off?
One last thing. All right.
Because I wanted to say, like, you don't have to find people who agree with you, like disagree. No. So then I thought we should find something that you and I really disagree on besides baseball.
Oh, I was gonna say easy baseball, but
something like we actually care about that we're different on.
Yeah.
Kind of model. Like we can have conversations and learn from people who are wrong.
Who are different. We'll see who's here longer then.
Oh man,
no.
But
tune in for the next debate.
Oh man, we'll find something.
Thank you for listening, guys. Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening. Comment, like, subscribe. Your viewership and listening matters to us.
Plant a tree.
You matter to us. Yeah, plant a tree. It obviously matters. All right. Thank you for listening. Peace out.
Adios.
That's the end of the episode, but we want to continue the conversation. Continue the conversation by sharing this episode, subscribing, or leaving a review. Connect with us on Instagram at 2414podcast. Connect with us through email at 2414@stlukes-church.com. Or best of all, keep the conversation going by inviting someone to process with you so that you can each walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. If you happen to be in the Seattle-Tacoma area of Washington, stop by on a Sunday morning and say hi. 2414 is a podcast produced by St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Federal Way, Washington. To find more content, discover upcoming opportunities to connect in person, or to support the show, head on over to stlukes-church.com. Thanks for walking with us.